Hey Hayden, what's up guys? My name is Richard Terrell. I go by Kirby Kid and you are watching DO
enLIGHTen.
Live. You are watching DO Live. This is where we are going to go over another recent master, someone who has mastered this game, and just reflect on their experience going from zero to hero. So we have Hayden here on the mic,
Hi.
and he can tell us what he thinks overall before we dive into some specifics.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It took me a little bit of time to really get into it, but there was one realization in particular where after that point, it was just super fun to continue and get, I guess, to reach both goals of enlightenment and mastery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the tools in place are intriguing in a lot of ways, and I also think that after playing the game, my entire approach to learning has shifted and I guess has in a way been enlightened.
Let's check out what that means for Hayden. Let's go to his records. As you can see, solid here. Your last thing you worked on was the dailies, I see. And
Sounds right.
the last thing you got your final points on was chatting with Gertrude to get your master. Interesting.
Oh wait, really? I don't remember that being the last thing. I
Oh,
thought it was a note.
explore, study notes. So that would have been down here. The arrow's pointing over here for whatever reason. At least in the last 5 hours, this gave you the most points towards mastery.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so it is possible. Let's check out his stats.
Oh no.
He's comparing his stats to Foo's, and the Foo's. A lot of people have a very similar climb up with their puzzles. It's really just a steady growth um, after some initial spike. And then the growth of the perfector one usually follows. Most people like to perfect them as they go along. Blind. It took Food a little bit longer to start doing the blind. But ultimately, it looks like it took you 16 hours to reach your final goal. And you just added a few shapes right there at the end. Interesting. So, looking at your stats here, are you watching the stream? Or I can just stream it through Discord.
Oh, I forgot you were streaming it.
It's not a big deal. I won't stream it. It looks like your averages of your last plays were 70s. But as long as you got enough scores in the high zones, you were fine.
Yeah, I guess so.
You need to make it 85 or above. So you did it here, 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 here. But only once each. Did you get away with murder?
Maybe it was only supposed to, or was I supposed to do it more than once?
I don't remember, but that's what I thought. Let's see. So you answered questions, and then you had a huge spike. You must have not known about the quizzes till about 12 hours in.
Yeah, I didn't know about them.
Completed conversations. It looks like you and Foos like to read most of the conversations of the lectures as they come to you. Notes written. Boom. Foos took more notes from the beginning, but you went off the top of the chart. Shapes renamed. About the same, just a handful here and there. This is how many times you were sent to the review mode and how many times you made notes in that mode. So Foods is orange and you're purple, and somewhere around your 9 hour mark, you really started to take more notes in the review mode.
Yeah, it's probably around when I had that interesting realization.
Hmm. far as tools go, no one uses Overwatch. Relevant notes. You use a ton of relevant notes. Hidden shapes. A lot there too. Everyone loves the clip keeper.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
And the flow history tool 8 times. So this distribution. Spent the most time in puzzle mode. Total game hours 20, it looks like.
Yeah.
It's just the graph is lagging a little bit behind, but we'll say 20. Spent a fifth of your time in the daily challenges. You spent a tenth of your time just reading the chats. You spent about a tenth of your time just reviewing your work. You spent a little bit amount of time just looking at the level select, an hour and 1.2 hours. And most of it was in puzzle mode, which you had a steady increase of when you went from hour 7 to 11. You solved a lot of grids, solved a lot of deja vus, redundance. You almost have more grids solved than redundant clicks. You must be a very careful clicker.
I don't know. That doesn't seem like... I don't feel like I am.
Well, you should see Crikey.
Well, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, I was pretty conscious about redundant clicks, but I wasn't necessarily conscious about making good clicks, but I was at least conscious about not being redundant most of the time.
Okay. Here we got the steady climb to enlightenment as you went over all the content, did the lectures, used the tools and stuff. A spike at around 7 hours, that's generally where your super interest started.
Yeah.
Oh, you're purple. Never mind, no spike at 7 hours.
Oh.
You got a spike at 3 hours and then tapered off on
That's
your
interesting.
curve.
That's weird.
And when did you discover the quizzes? At about 11 hours in? Then your score shot back up?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I guess now that I think about it, once I had that realization, I probably didn't spike, because then I started taking paper notes for a little bit.
Cheater!
Oh, I didn't know I was cheating.
Everything is cheating if I don't like it.
Oh.
So it looks like Foos is much farther away from Mastery here, but your curves look the same. And then yours just kind of started shooting up. So explain to us what the realization is that allowed you to go. So you were like, you went from basically 40% mastery to 100% overnight.
It's probably like 2 or 3 days, but
Oh, look at the.
yeah, pretty
Oh, yeah,
much.
you're not looking. 616 to 619. Yeah, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much I don't remember what made it click, but I think I was looking at a solution, and I arrived at another puzzle while I was trying to solve one, and as I was looking at the click keeper, it suddenly hit me that there was probably some pattern in how to solve the puzzle based on understanding how to look at the click keeper itself and how I got to a specific pattern from the beginning pattern. And after I like made some drawings on some paper, I think, are you looking through my notes right now?
Yeah.
If you can search it, I think the particular note said big discovery or something.
Okay.
And that's when I pretty much realized that you can do what's called an exclusive OR with the clicks to get... Yeah. So it says the answer to any solution is the difference between the exact clicks to get to a certain shape and the answer to that certain shape. And then I was wondering if that was true, and I needed to confirm it, and that's when I started taking notes on paper and comparing solutions to puzzles versus the click keeper telling me what clicks I made to get to another puzzle. And as I kept comparing, it kept working out, and I was like, "Whoa, maybe I actually figured out something cool here." And then my excitement for the game just, I guess, got significant. The game just got significantly more interesting from there, especially because I could tell that there was no way I would have figured that out if not for like the note taking tools and the click keeper and all of that. Like, it was super obvious to me that the tools that you made in the game were the reason I figured it out. And yeah, from there on, I was like, wow, this game is really cool. And I just wanted to, I don't know, I couldn't really put it down.
Yeah, that's
Which is
interesting.
kind of why I hit mastery
In
soon
3
after.
days, yeah. So yeah, you were at 36% mastery when you made the big discovery, and then a few days later, you were floating on the top of the mountain with the rest of the gurus.
Yeah, and I think the other key thing that helped was when I was playing and you were kind of guiding me through the way you would have done it, and that helped me figure out a new way of solving puzzles, based on kind of isolating puzzles into one, or isolating a portion of a puzzle, and kind of thinking about the direction in which the puzzle is moving across the grid.
Yeah, even though the puzzle game looks relatively simple, you know, there's so many different approaches that you can have to make your breakthrough and reach mastery. It sounds like you were getting to the additive and subtractive properties of different shapes when you mesh them together. Crikey found the identity transformation. Other people stumbled on closer to the JAAP method of reducing the lights. You read the reduction and then you make the adjustments. Yeah, I don't know. Harbors just seemed to. I'm not sure how Harbors did it, but Crystal, she was very much aware of different approaches to the daily challenges and had a few ranked in her mind. Like, these are cheap, and I'm going to do it the right way, but I'm going to learn this first, and knew what she had to do to get it and was able to pull it off, with some fantastic scores. And it's interesting because it seems like there's only one way to do it, and I think people trick themselves into thinking it's all just about memorization, but that's the thing that is not so important. So yeah, you're here. You were when I was watching you play Daily Challenge 1. And you were kind of like clicking away, and everyone does the first ones pretty fast. You can ignore the HUD when I was in my beta version. The stats here are the AI trying to predict my next move.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you would get to a point like this, and you're just like la 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 la. I'm like, wait, why did you make that click? What, why? And like every click, and I started to say, look, down here you could eliminate that. So if you eliminate that, what else does it turn into? And I was like, well, there's pinball on the bottom. So okay. And then like, is the shape up here one you think you can solve? And I would just ask you questions like, what are you thinking? And that, I guess, that helped you realize that every step can matter, and you can have a variety of reasons to do something like that.
Yeah, and I think it also just helped me with formulating new plans when I got stuck, which was kind of, like I said, the shifting across different ways, or thinking about isolating patterns and things like that. Because I definitely was not thinking about that until you kind of explained that to me.
It predicted I was going to click this one. I'm not, but if I did, let's see what happens if I just follow its instructions. Oh, I got stuck in a logic loop. That's cool though.
That is cool.
Yeah, we were talking about, and there's so many tools, and each of them kind of appeal to a different type of learner. A lot of people didn't use hidden shapes a little bit, but they didn't use it like a whole ton. And hidden shape is the tool that you need to like really start to break things down and realize this corner over here can be solved by itself, and just being able to see that ahead of time. Or other options that you might have, like there's that, and you can eliminate just the drawer handle inside of it, and then you can do that. And that almost leaves it enough. And then twin blocks. And yeah, and the quizzes were trying to help people see them with conceptual knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You specifically said that you found out about the quizzes late, so we can see that again in questions answered. So you are blue, and you found it out 12 hours in. So this is one of the most interesting parts about your journey, and something interesting to say about learning. The quizzes are designed to seed your mind with conceptual questions with no answers. We don't give you any answers. I don't give you any answers. And then that's supposed to help change the way you think about the game and have an impact. You didn't do almost any of the quizzes for the first 12 hours, did them all, and then from 12 hours onward, you can see your scores here. You did all the quizzes, and your scores are like high, higher, higher, high, like right here. It looks like you didn't do too many attempts before that, but yeah. So the question is, if you blinded the puzzles like everybody else, right, and your progress steadily increased up just like everybody else, and your time spent in each different modes was pretty much like everybody else, and you used the same tools as everybody else, and you had sort of a more or less frustrating, here's your progress from hour 6 to 12, you didn't hardly make any progress. Is this when you were like, I'm not feeling this game? When did you start? Oh, 5/1/2020?
Yeah, I guess so.
And then you had this, you didn't play, you played here, 5/16, 5/28/29, and then you didn't play till like 2 weeks later between here and here.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And then it's daily. You put in a lot of work on 6/16. And then it ended with you doing a bunch of quizzes. So you put in 6 hours of work, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in one day. You sure? You remember that day?
Probably did, yeah.
Man. But you can see none of your scores were kind of increasing. We can see what did between hours 6 and 11. What did increase? Blind, specifically. Almost flatline for all your daily stats. 6 to 11, you use a lot more. You got a lot more red, whatever that is. You did a lot more stumped responses, so you doing stuff that was making you stumped. And you spent a lot of time here doing that, and a lot of time, whatever this one is, let's see. And writing notes. So there's a period of time where, what shot up during that time? Relevant notes. So you were just in like a note splurge, and what's interesting here is I can go to filter, and I can go.
Oh, that might have been when there was a point when I realized that I had really no concept of solutions, and I was like, there's a solution thing. I should probably start noting solutions.
Interesting. So I could type in this solutions here like this, and then kind of check the date on this. War stats. 6/16. Yeah, you went on the splurge, it looks like. 6/16. And I can even do this. Filter, solutions. How many days back is 6/16? 8 days back?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll go 10. 10 days back, these are all the solutions you made between 6/16 and 6/17. right here. And that's all the notes. And if you want to see that represented dots
Yeah.
red, this is what you did. In one day, you went back and made this many solutions out of everything. So you're not lying. That's good. We go back here. So the other thing I was going to say was, I guess we can look at all the notes you took after that day. So we can actually slide this one up and days back, days forward. We want days forward from that day. And then we do all notes. And the things that you were saying here, these are all the notes you took after that day. Many more. Maybe this. Yeah, that's a lot. So now your notes say things like, look at the positive and negative space. I tend to only look at positive space. This has a surprisingly complex solution. When you have a solo dot, clicking on it and to the nearest edges besides it seems helpful. You have some things in there to solve in explore mode. Solving the bat here does not solve the corner piece. And longer notes like, my default method is solving by collapsing and moving the shapes in arbitrary directions. Default method. Start seeing the hidden shapes more often in the bats here. So these are all the kinds of things you start to say and think after you put in the work. Or wait, after the 16th, which was after your quiz fest, right? I think
Yeah,
so.
probably.
Pay attention to the white space in Daily Challenge 2. This is where the one inversion away from the waffle fry. So this is the kind of stuff you were talking about before that time. Nothing. So I don't know where it went. Okay, this is all the stuff you thought before then. We'll just scroll down some. The solution isn't symmetrical. Pull away from itself at the start. Why is this one so easy for me? I got it in the first try. Luck or something. Some sort of pattern recognition. Different clicks and the result. Different numbers of the lights. How could I use this to my advantage? Baby food setup. If you are having trouble solving a puzzle, try solving it the weirdest way possible for deception. This is the first blind puzzle mode I didn't get on the first try. What about it is complicated? A lot of questions. I have a tendency to collapse open circular shapes for some reason. These feel like it tends towards solutions. Why is it hard for me to turn this into a fighter? Yeah, these notes almost say nothing about the game. When you're asking like, why did this stump me? That doesn't say anything about the game, but it is good to investigate it, and that's a good note. But as far as the difference on that one day you made and how you talked about the game is pretty obvious.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You went from just like, why is this in my way, to like, I can see the nature of things, and instead of having questions, I rest in my observational answers rather than probing beyond where I am. That's pretty obvious from your notes. Your stats reflect that. The curiosity that stimulated your mind was enough to overload your brain and put you over the edge. So in essence, if you didn't have the curiosity to think about those concepts on your own or go through the quizzes, you wouldn't have made your breakthrough. In essence, what do I want to say about that? And you can have really good learning practices, and you can have diligence, you can have dedication to doing the drills and stuff and put in the time like you did, but you may hit a wall because you are simply not approaching, doing, or feeding yourself the kind of information that will broaden your scope. Sometimes you get that just from watching other people play or talking to them. I don't know how many notes of Foos you read, right?
Not too many.
But Foos' notes aren't conceptual either. he just talks about like the actual clicks to solve or the shape, but nothing about the nature of these things. He just says use this to make this, use this to make this. A long-standing unknown shape can be talked about with the tag Centro. Oh, he's putting in the work though. Right? All this food stuff and your stuff sitting on top. And like you, he has like, this is an area of research interest. Look into this, look into this.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see when Foos makes his breakthrough if there'll be a significant difference in the way he talks about it. But yeah, Crikey talks about transformations. You're talking about like a high level, I guess, emergent property or a transformation of the grid, and it's just all the game is this. That's it. And yet, you can see how complicated it is to understand. Where your roadblocks will be if you don't have sort of the balanced diet of learning food for thought. If you don't feed yourself the appropriate food for thought, and then how quickly and how big of a difference it made for you after you had it, right? Like I feel like your zeal for the game was your stored up interest, right? Like 7 hours worth that you burned in like 3 hours, right? Because of those flatlinings, and then you just did a whole bunch of like data research for collecting all those solutions, but maybe that whole time your brain was just reorganizing and churning on things, right? You don't have too many hashtags.
Yeah, that was partially just because I kind of failed to understand the system until toward the very end.
Oh, okay. That's my fault then. But yeah, cool. That's a very interesting story. Everyone's different. Now that you've reached mastery, how did you feel about playing the daily challenges?
It was interesting. I guess for a long time, I thought the game revolved around the puzzle mode, and by the time I started looking at the enlightenment chart, like by the time I unlocked that, I was like, oh wait a second, the puzzle mode isn't really what this is revolving around. And then suddenly note-taking, daily challenges, reviewing things, explore mode, all of that suddenly became significantly more at the forefront. And I really felt like the daily challenges, I guess it, like, I was thinking about it from the puzzle mode perspective for so long that by the time I got around to doing the daily challenges more, I felt like my understanding became significantly more holistic, and it just filled in a lot of, I guess, intuitive gaps that were there. Like I felt like my intuition got significantly stronger from doing the daily challenges, and I also found new ways to apply the mathematical sort of additive subtractive approach. Like when I first started doing the daily challenges, the fifth one was the hardest for me, and then it became the easiest after I kind of realized the
what it was asking and how to do it.
Yeah, and using the math stuff.
That's interesting that, the fifth one is you convert one pattern that they give you into this target that they want you to be in. So in essence, you're just solving this one all the way down and then building this one up. But I stop you from progressing if you simplify the shape too much. So in essence, you can just make it ugly in one corner and then restore it in the other. But it's amazing how even understanding the rules was a barrier for some people, right? Like
yeah.
Having to stop was especially, like, the fact that it stops you and makes you restart made it really hard for me to realize that at first, but then once it clicked, I was like, oh! And then it became so much easier.
Yeah. And this is the challenge that teaches you how to segment parts of the board, right? When you're in the other dailies and you're like, oh, you think about different isolated parts, you can do that with this one. This bat attack can be solved without touching this top part, so I can technically put the answer here, and then just solve the bat on its own. And then you can see how you can disturb some areas, borrow from some areas, piggyback on other areas. And then even though it's ugly, you're still in complete control. Like, hopefully, yeah, daily 5, daily 2, Those are the ones that tripped a lot of people up. That attack. Yeah, and being able to see, oh, this one is the potential for this one. It's just on its side, and being able to, like, some people can't even do this very well. It depends on how they were learning. But right here, I see, oh, I need some straight lines here. A good way to get straight lines is to, well, I don't want to add one up here, but I want one down here. So you just kind of position it. And some people don't think even in the smallest terms of like, this is what I need, and I have to do the only thing I can do to get there. They were having trouble with that. Like for this one, like, well, you know you're going to need to fill up this whole space. The most efficient way to do that is there. Now you have a few clicks to kind of fix the rest of it. You're like, well, I know I need a light here, but I don't want to disturb this one I put down, so what if I put one there and there? You're like, oh. So that's that, like, I don't know if it's abductive, but there's different types of reasoning you can use to address your lack of knowing a solid solution. And I feel like some people get real nervous when they're in those gray areas, but everyone gets to see that for themselves. Yeah, so now you have the power.
The power. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, your data gives us interesting insights on what learning pace is and how it can not be wasted. How if you learn at the right pace, even if it's slow, that energy is stored up. But if you learn too fast, that energy is wasted, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, thanks for the reflection and interview for enLIGHTen.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
See you later, guys. And if you guys want to play this game for yourself, hop on over to designoriented.net/enLIGHTen game, and you can play it.
It's really good.
Yeah. All right, later.